That's where we start today with Democratic Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren of California. She was a member of the House Select Committee investigating January 6th. She sits on the House Judiciary Committee. Congresswoman, thank you for being here.
Of course.
Tell me what you heard from Jack Smith today.
Well, I've spent most of today in the committee room with the depositions. The members of the committee are asked not to reveal the testimony. I will say this, that I believe the entire transcript will be released at some point. I'll just say this, it is a shame that this testimony is going on in secret. There's no reason for it. And in the past, when special prosecutors have finished their cases and written up their reports, they always come to the Judiciary Committee in a public session, and not only the committee members, but the public gets to find out what went on. I'll just say this. If you want to know what Jack Smith was able to prove, just go back to the January 6th committee report and read the report or even the executive summary, and that's what he was prepared to prove beyond a reasonable doubt with a lot of evidence. I'll say this, the Judge Cannon in Florida has enjoined the release of Volume 2 of his report, which relates to the classified document case, and consequently, he did not go into anything in Volume 2 because he's prohibited from doing so by Judge Cannon, and she's got a deadline in January to release that, and we'll see what happens next.
Let me show you what your colleague, Congressman Jamie Raskin, said about today's briefing.
I just want to say that Chairman Jordan made an excellent decision in not allowing Jack Smith to testify publicly, because had he done so, it would have been absolutely devastating to the president and all of the president's men involved in the insurrectionary activities of January the 6th. So, I can't get into any further particulars, but I'll just say that Jack Smith has just spent several hours schooling the Judiciary Committee on the professional responsibilities of a prosecutor and the ethical duties of a prosecutor, and he's a sensational and honorable public servant, and we are lucky to have him in the bar in the United States.
Can you agree or disagree with that description of what happened from Congressman Raskin?
No, I completely agree. And subsequent to Jamie's statement there, we had another session where he went through the evidence relative to the criminal conspiracy that Trump was at the head of relative to overthrowing the government on January 6th, and the evidence that he had that would have allowed him to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury that those crimes had been committed. So, no small wonder that Jim Jordan and the rest of those who are trying to pretend that Trump was not guilty of those crimes didn't want that to come out in public. Why they subpoenaed Mr. Smith at all to go through and rehash the guilt of President Trump about that illegal effort to overturn the Constitution is really a question I wonder about.
What in their telling or over on Earth 2 did they think they were doing today, the Republicans on the committee?
I have no idea. I will say that I think their line of questioning has been unfocused and not very useful. I don't know what they're trying to prove, honestly, from their questions. And the few times they've made assertions, they just fell flat because the evidence doesn't support it. So it's pretty lame. And ultimately, as I say, I believe the transcript will be released and people will be able to make their own conclusions based on what they read. But it would have been compelling to see Mr. Smith. I did see him. But for the public to see his very composed, logical, evidence, legal and fact-based conclusions as he led this important investigation into Mr. Trump's efforts to overturn the Constitution and our democracy.
Because it's been a minute, let me just refresh our viewers recollections of the specific evidence that Jack Smith had developed to prove his two cases against Donald Trump beyond a reasonable doubt, but specifically the January 6th insurrection case. This is from Jack Smith's indictment about lawmaker phone calls, which were reported to have been of interest. The defendant, through White House aides, attempted to reach two U.S. senators at 6 p.m. From 6:59 p.m. until 7:18 p.m., co-conspirator 1 placed calls to 5 U.S. senators and 1 United States representative. In one of the calls, co-conspirator 1 left a voicemail intended for a U.S. senator that said, "We need you, our Republican friends, to try to just slow it down so we can get these legislatures to get more information to you. And I know they're reconvening at 8 tonight, but the only strategy we can follow is to object to numerous states and raise issues so that we get ourselves into tomorrow, ideally the end of tomorrow." In another message intended for another U.S. senator, co-conspirator 1 repeatedly, knowingly alleged false allegations of election fraud. Co-conspirator 1 also claimed that the vice president's actions had been surprising and asked the senator to object to every state and kind of spread this out a little bit like a filibuster. What was the reaction? Was there any rebuttal of actual facts, or was there a debate about prerogatives and immunity and protections?
Not that I heard. And if you read volume 1 of his report, he talks not just about what happened on January 6th, but the events leading up to it, the fake elector scheme and the conspiracy that kept falling apart until finally at the end there was only the violence and the effort to overturn through pressure and violence. It's a remarkable thing that almost 5 years ago this happened. Some Americans may have forgotten about it. I certainly have not. But this is a good reminder that our democracy came perilously close to being overturned just 5 years ago. And given Trump's current lawless behavior in so many arenas, it's clear that we're not out of the woods yet.